It's Heroes for Sale, number 61. Riccardo with you. And of course, he is definitely the Commander Supreme. Stu Colson, how are you, mate?
Commander Supreme. I love that. I love that. I saw just on a little side note thing, I saw a clip online the other day, and it was the Russian disinformation channel. You can watch these guys talk. They're getting nowhere in Ukraine, and they're talking about, let's invade Poland next, all this sort of bullshit. But at one point, one of them referred to Putin as Supreme Leader. And then in the comments, so I was like, hang on, Kim Jong-un's Supreme Leader, doesn't that make Putin Suprema Leader? And like, no, the Chinese are, so he's the Suprema Leader. So if there's one Supreme Leader already, you can't have another, I think is what it comes out of. But you can on this ship.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you take it, mate. You take it. Now, we've got a bit to get through. We've got a locally made, written, drawn, produced graphic novel to come, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So let's get right into it and start with Marvel #1, From the Ashes, A New Beginning, Dazzler. And this, I saw the cover of this and I was like, okay, it could be Gem and the Holograms Next Generation or something like that, Stu. That's how it looked to me initially.
Yeah, fair call. I'll give you that. So anyone who doesn't know, Dazzler is a mutant from the X universe, and her power is she turns sound into light beams and energy power weapons. So her shtick is disco, which I just think is absolutely fantastic. Because if those of you, anyone listening, should know that Tuesday is Disco Tuesday at Heroes for Sale. So I've got a nice big long 4-hour disco soundtrack that we play on Tuesdays on high rotation. And I dig it. So, disco has a little bit of, at my age, has a little bit of fondness for it. So, yeah, Dazzler. But we had a special review. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, my daughter, who is, I would imagine, right in the demo for this, nearly 12 years old, she read it. And I said, can you read this and tell me what you think so I can tell Stu and people on the podcast? And she was like, yep. And so she read it and I said, what do you think? And she went, I really like it. I was like, have you got more for us? And she said, yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And I was, okay, so what did you like about it? And she was like, I liked how she's a mutant trying to get humans to like mutants and bring people together. And I was like, okay, all right. So we had something there. But yeah, so she's on board, Stu. She wants me to put this on order.
Okay. Good stuff. And there's such a, it's Taylor Swift as an X-Men, isn't it? Like even the way she gets to the stage, wasn't there some clip that I think Taylor Swift gets transported inside a cleaning cart or something like that? They've got some box on wheels that looks like stage equipment. And she's pushed through that into, because obviously the fans are getting there hours early. And then she opens up in some tent and appears. And this has now been confirmed. So that's exactly how Dazzler makes her way to the stage. She comes inside a piece of sound equipment. And they open it up and it's multiple man there. I liked his cameo in the story. Like if you're setting up a gig, you get one person who knows how to do it all, then multiply them 50 times. It's a pretty smart way to get everything organized. So
cut down your travel costs for your crew.
It certainly would. If you were going to do the Taylor Swift and pay out the Teamsters, you're going to save on that one. There's only one guy. Or does he turn up on payday and splits himself up? Who knows which way he goes with that? But yeah, it's definitely like the teen target. And in all comics these days, they do that neat little get the idea of what the community's thinking about by throwing it through, phone screenshots, so you can see what people are tagging and that sort of thing. So targeting that market quite well. That's who the market is, and they've done it perfectly. So if you have teenage daughters or younger and you want to get them some comics, this is it. I mean, Marvel have just absolutely, I think in the last 3 months, they've launched about 50 titles.
Wow.
If you include the X-Men block, so there's about 10 in that, you're getting different versions of some of these titles, the sort of the polybag bloodier stuff. So I like that they're doing everything to every market. It's not like in the past they relaunch X-Men and it only has a certain segment that it's going to appeal to, or they're relaunching the Avengers and a different group for that. But because they're doing everything now, if you're looking to get kids or yourself or to try something else from the Marvel universe, there's just so many #1s hitting, and it's expansion. Like Dazzler hasn't had her own comic since, I don't know, was it a 80s or 90s comic when she had her own series? The idea of a series for her was pretty unknown.
And just on that, Stu, reflecting on it and thinking about the fact that she's disco, she kind of had to be disco or pop, really, didn't she? I mean, because you talk about her powers, and I automatically thought of Pink Floyd, but I'm like, if she's a Floydian progressive rock type artist, if some shit goes down, it's going to take her 3 minutes to get to the vocal before she can do anything, right? Because it's all going to be guitar noodling and bass solos and drum fills and stuff. So yeah, it had to be. It had to
be. Lead straight with pop rock and the dancing. Yeah.
And that was the other thing that Ilaria did say, and she's onto something here because we're only one issue in, but she thinks that Dazzler's manager/agent might turn out to be a baddie because she made Shark Girl wear a collar that transformed her to not look like a mutant on stage, and she thought it was very mean.
Yeah, and that led into, so this is why I think this is a really good comic for younger people as well, because it's using these kind of analogies to talk about things that have a direct translation, having to hide in plain sight ideas. And I guess there's a big part of identity in this. And I did feel a bit of that when I was reading it. It was definitely, I mean, in the past, the mutants was obviously always, the X-Men was the way that the Jews were treated, and that was, the direct parallels to that. This certainly felt a little bit without ever mentioning it, which I think was really clever. And like you said, that Shark Girl having to hide who she was. Yeah, I think that's what this was more about without saying it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to get a message across. I mean, to people who have been reading this sort of stuff for a long time, it's probably, if you read this, the message is quite obvious, but it's a good way to subvert it, if you want to use that term, into younger readers, to get them that idea of whether it's race or sexuality or gender or whatever it is. It's kind of everybody's acceptable for who they are, and this is kind of trying to put that forward.
How old's Ilaria?
She'll be 12 in December.
Right. And so the fact that she immediately picked up that someone trying to force someone else to hide who they were was the bad thing. Society has hope if we don't destroy the planet before they take over.
Exactly. There you go. Dazzler #1 from the ashes, a new beginning. If you've got kids in your life you're trying to get to read, then maybe there's a good place to start, especially if they're Swifties. They'll probably appreciate it.
Mate, if you're a Swiftie, you're going to be all over this.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I know what Swifties are all about. Good God, another tired old white man saying what the Swifties want. So I withdraw that statement, and maybe you'd like to check this out, and make your own decision. I won't demand you like it. Is that safer?
That's safer. And I'll tell you, if you've also got a wardrobe, if you're maybe a little older and have a wardrobe full of 90s Gem and the Hologram comics, this might be for you as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right, mate.
Cool.
Let's move on to #2 for today. Vault Comics have put this one out. It is a #1, and it is horror. We're doing more and more horror, actually, I've noticed. This is Something Crawled Out, it is called, Stu, and it's a #1. It's a big #1, and there's plenty of content in here, man, and quite an interesting story.
Yeah. So Vault is a publisher who frequently do these bundles to retailers. It's like, if you buy 25 copies of this, you buy a bundle of 25, they do a discounted price that it's almost, they're dearer than free comic book day books that we land, but they're pretty cheap. So I'll frequently just grab a bundle, like, okay, $2.50, check it out. And they do give you plenty. So, like, they don't, like, my bugbear with free comic book day comics is too many of them there's not enough comic in it. Or it's reprinting something that too many people have already read, which kind of works to get someone new into it, but it makes it hard. These are genuine. This is a genuine, was a 48-page comic with this called Something Crawled Out. And when you say there's a lot in it, there's also, I felt it was like it ends with a bang.
Yes.
Like it ends with a holy, okay. But there was partway through it, I was reading it easily because sometimes there's, look at that page, double page spread, all the action, and the only text on it is the word shit. Okay, as you see something go through, so you can turn the pages pretty quickly. And while they're sort of building up who the two main characters are, they kind of confuse it a little bit too with that. And then we just launch into this ending, which...
Yeah, I think maybe if we read the blurb off the back, it might help put it into some sort of context, right?
Something Crawled Out. Edith Eddie Miller has no grand plans or great prospects. She spends her days sleeping in and her nights working shifts at a gas station. But when her younger sister fails to come home, Eddie unearths a web of missing girls and rotting bodies. The police prove useless, so Eddie teams up with her best friend Raina in a desperate hunt to find her sister. The only thing is, Eddie believes her best friend might be the devil himself. I got none of that from reading this issue. I didn't see the bodies. I didn't. Definitely the mate is. What is this guy? There was definitely something that happened that had you question him. But
yeah, because the comic itself leads with the second part, not the first part, right? And the first part is woven in a little bit, but very subtly, so that it's not even on the radar. It's more a subplot than actually what you're trying to follow, given how they sell it.
Yes, it is strange in that. And I've got to ask you this: did you struggle with the gender of her sometimes in the comic? Did you find it confusing the way she was drawn?
Yep.
So they, in the second or third page, they do a deliberate. She's sort of lying in a bath, and then as she gets out and gets dressed, you can see her breasts from behind and an angle. So okay. If in the first couple of pages you hadn't picked that up, that is a girl. But then they chuck the T-shirt on, and there's some. Like at first, I didn't know what was going on because there's one shot in the T-shirt where you could see she has breasts under it, and then she's drawn almost like a boy, like a young teenage boy, completely flat chested. And I'm like, because of the little incident at the start with the, is it the devil? I was confused as to, is this deliberate? Are they messing with us, and that's part of the plot? Because there was a couple where it was definitely one page, like in this page here, again, that's it's a teenage girl.
Yeah.
That's a teenage boy.
Yeah.
And those panels are almost next to each other. So I was like, wait. And so it made me go back and check it out. And then I never really knew what was going on, which I thought was very clever for the comic until the horror part starts to kick in at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hooked me a bit. I want to kind of get to the next part because I'm keen to see how much of a devil Rainer is, or if he is the devil. There's that hook. But then the guy with the goggles turns up as well, and you're like, where the fuck did he come from? He's on the cover, and he doesn't appear until about 3/4 of the way through the book.
Yeah, I'm gonna read all of this. It's definitely, like, there's been a few of the Vault ones that have come in, and this one has done a really good job of asking a whole lot of questions and setting up a pretty fresh story. I don't recall something that was going this, or I don't recall reading the issue 1 of a comic and get to the end of it and thinking, I don't know a lot about what's really going on with this, but I like how they've executed it. And it's $2.50, folks. It's a 48-page comic. It's got a US $4.99 price, which would have been $11.95, and we're selling it for $2.50.
Yeah,
so it's worth just grabbing issue 1 to check it out, because it's pretty fascinating setup.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, if you like James Tinney and the Fourth kind of stuff, then I think you'll enjoy this book. Something crawled out from Vault is what it is. All right, mate. The big banger in today's lineup, it has to be said, a new Marvel #1.
As I said, there's a lot of them coming out.
Yeah. Avengers Assemble. And this is Avengers are back. Cap is back as well. And I read this, and even the artwork and the story, it almost feels like a throwback comic. It's not a throwback comic, but it feels like a comic that could have been produced in the 80s or 90s.
We're getting the band back together. Yeah. It's just gone big energy, isn't it? And I guess that's what you've got to do if you're doing the Avengers. You've got to, the threat level has to escalate, which means that you're going to have a bigger problem going on in that part of the story, which means you've got to have a top artist on the whole thing. So great coloring, all of that, and the pages are filled. They just get these relaunches right every time. That's what they've done here. Avengers big enemy. So the villain is stolen a mask from an archaeological dig that's allowed her to channel hate. So people surrounding her, so general public, become violent, and then so the Avengers have got to sort of work through that, and then you have the introduction of the various team elements for the story. So yeah, it's big. It's big fun, right?
Yeah, man, it's big fun, and there's a bunch of stuff in this book because I don't want to give too much away. You're going to get #1. You should read it if you're an Avengers fan. You should definitely get it. Definitely read it. But there's more to this that meets the eye? No, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But you know what I mean? No, that's Transformers even. I'll get it right yet. But, you know, because it's not all it seems to be at the start of the book. By the end of the book, you get a fuller picture.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's mentioned in here, Stu, and I know that I am a little bit guilty of taking things back to Conan, but Set is named in here. And Set is a serpent god that comes out of the Robert E. Howard, Conan, and Cull universes. So I don't know if that's going to tie back. Remember there was a Savage Avengers about 2 or 3 years ago? I don't know if that's going to lead to a tie-in somewhere, but they mentioned Set in here and a snake cult, and I'm like, hang on a minute. Where's the bloke in the furry diaper?
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's, I mean, and Marvel can do that now, right? Do whatever they want with all of these properties. So, you know, we discussed that the other week. Is the Aliens universe is now part of, you know, the Avengers universe? So, which is weird. You can just drop them in. I would love Marvel to do a month of that. Just an aliens crossover pop up everywhere in every single story.
Yeah,
down for that.
You know what they haven't done actually, which I think would work quite well, and that's Guardians of the Galaxy meets Predator or meets Aliens.
Yeah, and especially when they do the whole aliens just kick ass straight away. I love that thematic that they've run within those stories now. So
you've read a lot more Avengers than I have. I'm picking, given that you owned a comic book shop for 30 years. Where does this sit for you, Avengers Assemble? Because I mean, we've had relaunches of the Avengers and let's get back together, get the team back together before. So how's this impressed you, this first book?
I mean, there is the standard, as I said, we're getting the band back, right? So who's turning up at the mansion? So we get to see the cast of characters that they're going to run with, and you've got to have a bit of action stuff going with it. So who have we got here? We've got Captain America and Hawkeye. Yep. Those are your Avengers, okay? And then it's She-Hulk, not Hulk. Wonder Man, there's no Iron Man, there's no Hulk, there's no Thor.
Shang-Chi.
So, yeah, they've brought in Shang-Chi, Wonder Man, and Hercules, and Photon. So they're always having to bring in, you know, because of previous stories, they've got to launch with, you know, who's available to make sense of canon. And you got to do it. You got to do it every now and then. You can't just keep bringing back, you know, the same 5. It's not the Fab 5 over and over, because then you've basically got 10 number ones that are the same comic. And I think Marvel have been a little bit guilty of that occasionally. So I think it's a solid not relaunch, but Avengers Assemble has been out before. I like Steve Orlando. I think he's a good writer of his independence. This is probably going to be one of the first big 2 that he's worked on that I look like I'm probably going to follow, if for nothing else, to see if Conan shows up.
Yeah, fair enough too. Great reason to follow it.
But beautiful art. Like there's sometimes when they get these, there's just some of the pages in this, like the one you were talking about, that kind of suggests that we could be going, you know, Conan-ish. They're in that kind of tomb cave layout, and it's just, you know, I love art I love comics with good backgrounds, and they've done that throughout. Yeah, no, the one before. No, the one towards the end.
Towards the end, yeah. But the other thing that they've done really well in here too is, you know, the She-Hulk panels look like She-Hulk, but then when you have, you know, Shang-Chi do his thing, it's got a whole different aesthetic.
It's almost like, you know, a TV doing a dream sequence. Like it was a real, like the color palettes are similar color, but one of it's brighter. Is that like there's a definite difference in each page art, even though the colors are the same?
I think there's a lot of blurring, if you like, and movement suggested in Shang-Chi, which just suggests how much faster he's moving than anybody else, or, you know, what he's doing with his movements. And there's a lot of reds and things, and his crimsons in his background as well, which is kind of cool. So you definitely know when it's his panel versus, say, She-Hulk's panel or someone else's panel.
Yeah, that scene when he punches him 5 times in the head.
Yeah,
that was really cool. It's a really neat way. He almost looks like a Hydra.
Yeah,
going at it, but with the shadows. Yeah, that's actually clever.
Yeah, on that, I did see this yesterday, which I thought was quite good, and you'll appreciate it, Stu. I love Bruce Lee because he studied art and poetry and decided the most beautiful form of self-expression is punching someone in the face.
Wow. Glad you've got daughter, not a son there, Riccardo. That's where you're taking those kind of tips from.
Yeah, outstanding. There you go. That is Avengers Assemble, sort of with a weird twist at the end.
Yeah.
Those are our books for today, but we do have, Stu, something special.
Yeah, man. What do you mean you haven't read this?
And you probably haven't, and that's no shade on you, but you probably, well, not probably, you definitely should. If you're a comics fan and you're a Kiwi, Machines of Mana, the Aberrant Spark is definitely worth checking out from local creators.
Like, just crazy. These guys, they rang the shop and they said, "Oh, we've made a couple of comics. Can we come in and meet you? And can we sell them in your store? Will you buy something?" Like, yeah, sure, bring it along. We'll take a look. If nothing else, I'll tell you why I'm not going to carry it. And if people are prepared to be brave enough to weather that storm, they'll go away with some seriously good how to sell a comic advice, right?
Yep.
These guys turn up with these two books. So this is volume 1. They turn up with 2 volumes. Machines of Mana, the Aberrant Spark. It's a 96-page full-color graphic novel for $20 Kiwi. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
How has this happened? And we haven't known anything about it. It was part of my, like, who are you guys to be this good?
They haven't scrimped either, right? This is really, if we're talking the actual product itself and getting into the tax of it, the actual cardstock they've used for the cover and the paper they've used, this is as good as anything you'll find anywhere else.
Like, the paper's almost like a calendar, isn't it?
Yeah.
For that kind of thick, waxy, that gives you an idea of what we mean. It's like 10 times better than anything we've just looked at from the big companies that we've just done as comics. But this is 3 times the weight on the paper stock alone. They originally did this as web, okay, and they've obviously followed it through and done now the print version. So it does suffer from that little bit of a problem, and I talked to them about it. I said, look, if you're doing that's all perfect, but when you go to print, you've got to bring the color up. You've got to bring the light up by at least 15%, because there are a few pages where you can't quite make out from the shade to the reality. But it doesn't detract from it at all, because this is a bleak world. This is dystopian, post we've wiped ourselves out and there's only AI left, which is basically what the story's about. So the darkness of it, it works perfectly for them, because the sky always has that kind of shitty golden hue, because the sun can't quite peek through the noxious carbon fumes that we've managed to choke out the entire planet with. So the palette works for that, but there is the odd page where you kind of you want to be in full light to read it. But my God,
superb artwork. The artwork is just superb. And the only thing I would say, Stu, that, like, from a constructive criticism point of view, is that it felt at times like the writing had come after the artwork.
So I spoke to the guy, because when we got it, and there's 2 volumes, by the way. This is just volume 1. So there's another one in the shop. Like I said, $20 each, beautiful art and all that. And they've got this plan to do 9 volumes, and it's the story about how an AI wakes up in a physical consciousness. It's been born into a physical consciousness, and it's got to learn its body, the robot body, before it can go on its journey. And it's going through this bleak as world. And the guys who did it are dice chuckers, right? So it's a role play group who've obviously decided to do this other story, and too much of this comic is narrated. Right. But equally, so much of that narration, and I hate to say this to the guys, who wrote that, you can just skip. You don't need to, because comics are about the art, and there's pages of this where what's going on, and you've only got to read every sort of 5th panel. And I know this is a terrible review to be saying that, but they made a mistake in that area, and I talked to them about it, and I said, look, if you wanted to have this exposition of the world, give them a sidekick, or at the start have the AI be a bit insane and be having a conversation with themselves. But you tell story in comics through conversation. You don't describe what's going on. And because so much of that little bit of narration is slightly flowery description of what's going on, you can skip it. Yeah, like Through sheer force of will alone, Luvana managed to prop herself upright and begin her journey prideful as ever. With a panel of someone, slowly plodding along the landscape with this stick, that's everything shit. So if you want to read the poetry, read it. But a lot of it's not necessary, is how I felt. And at $20, I still got maximum value out of the story, supported some Kiwis who have done a phenomenal job and who have taken that on board straight away. I said, you don't want to do this. And I showed them a couple of examples of stories that did it. Patience, Conviction, Revenge is a really good example of, a mad robot. With some guys out in the desert and he's coming back to LA and he has a little robot beside him that he uses to talk to, and the robot has this obsession with correct enunciation and grammar. And he gets furious at this guy who doesn't speak properly with this one word. He's like, am I the only person noticing this? So you've got this really neat, funny little thing going on. And then little robot, when they get to the city, turns out to be, a multi-dimensional warbot, and finally gets to lay waste to this guy and is cannoned up the wazoo. And looks like an AC-130 gunship is the reality of what this thing is. And by not understanding that opportunity and bringing us out with what is a beautiful, beautiful book that I hope people can forgive them for that and continue with it, because if they get this right for the third volume, they do change that part around. This is going to be, mate, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a pitch to Netflix.
Yeah.
If someone picked up this idea of a story, depending on how they end it. But this is, and it's timely, right? So regardless of what we've talked about in all that, this is a sentient AI getting a robotic body after we've had the war that wipes us all out. And, does it have is it emotional? Do we experience the fear and the shame? So there's all these things going on with this AI being, more human than some of the human elements of some comics that we see. There's conversations that this machine has with itself, where it tries to understand, that are deeper than any conversation Steve Rogers has ever had with himself about being Captain America. Right, let's be honest about that. So that side of the introspection of what they've done with this machine as it grows is worth reading at least half of that part. But for me, there was just a little, I know it sounds like shit. There's too many words. Can you take some of the words out? That's a little bit of how, and some of it was just completely unnecessary. Although that said, the writer has a great command of the English language, and the level of the writing was high quality. So
yeah, I mean, I got to the end of this and I was like, wow, this has set this world up really, really well. I wasn't sure how many. You said it's going to be 9. I wasn't sure.
9.
But I think they've done a wonderful job. If you want to support New Zealand creators and get yourself a really good quality comic book with superb art in it for $20, you can't go wrong with Machines of Mana.
Right? No. For every, this will be one of our biggest sellers leading up to Christmas, without a doubt. We are just going to, like you said. I've had some people come in and they're like, some people said, oh, hey, you guys, I missed your signing. I said, oh, look, this is what we got. This is a couple of kids. And they're like, what? That's $20. Those 2 books are $20 from, I'm like, New Zealand's like, yeah, give them here. Yep. Some people are going, I don't care. I don't even know if I'm ever going to read it. But, I only read superheroes, whatever. It's not my thing. But if that's what they're bringing out for $20 a book, I'll support that. So, well, that's kind of not what we're trying to do, but we'll all take your money on that argument anyway. So
yeah, fair play.
And that is a testament, folks, to the quality of the production. And we've talked about the paper stock, and we've talked a little about the actual word, but the detailing that they've gone into on some of these panels and pages is absolutely exquisite. When that little sort of flying Wall-E kind of robot starts at the beginning. And it's really just about that little robot flying around through it. The level they've gone to in the background for the kind of almost, I'll say Games Workshop, grief, Mariupol, half of what Ukraine looks like now, background, with a bit of tech in it. Like, these aren't throwaway panels. They, I know I often am very critical of web-based comics because they don't have background. It's too much talking heads, but there is none of this as talking heads. Absolutely none of it.
And also just a bit of a I know this graphic novel is about AI in a dystopian world, but Project Tempest. Now there's a bit in the back about it, but there's also when your Wall-E-esque robot guy is going through towards the beginning of the book, he goes through some ruins, and there are a couple of QR codes on the ruins. And I went, did they? And I got my phone out, and in the book, you like in the story, you can hover over the QR code that are in the ruins, and it opens up Project Tempest for you.
And from in there, like that's just starting to be fleshed out, but there's like game tokens or something. There's things you can get as part of that whole. So these guys are clever and techy. I think they've done a fantastic job. But just look at this. They are clever. That panel. And then that panel.
Yeah.
So a couple of the times they've done a really, really detailed part of the city, and then they've been able to shift that into a later, page, few later, which is smart.
So it's not just randomized background; it's actually still part. They know where they are geographically in the story as well.
Yeah, and I guess it's an art object is how they're using it. Yeah. So good stuff, fellas.
Yeah, well done. Machines of Mana, the Aberrant Spark, that is available in store now, as is Book 2, Age of the Starstone. So you can get them both together. Cost you $40 all up. You'll have 2 graphic novels and about 200 pages worth of reading.
Yeah, go Kiwi. Well done, man.
Go Kiwi, indeed. There you go. That is Heroes for Sale 61, Stu. Cool. Bash that one out of the park. We'll do another one shortly, eh?
Yeah, got some good stuff came in this week now that that other shipment, that company's caught up, so we should do The Moon is following us. I think you'll love that.
All right.
Yeah, Daniel Warren Johnson's new one.
Oh, Daniel Warren Johnson is a busy man.
Yeah.
All right. Stay tuned. There'll be more shortly.
Thanks, folks.